Most people know creatine for helping build muscle and the effects it has for ATP. You're going to want to listen to this for other benefits that it actually has. How it can help your brain under stress and even being sleep deprived. Check this out.
The role of creatine, it seems to have multiple roles, anti-inflammatory, anti-catabolic.
Right.
It's obviously important for producing ATP, regenerating the ATP. What about the brain?
What's super exciting? Like, this is such an emerging area. So from the neck up, I think the next 20 to 30 years will be focused almost entirely on this. So our liver produces creatine, and our brain actually is unique. It also produces creatine. But the brain is very resistant. We have the blood-brain barrier for a really important reason. And the brain says, you know what? Circulation, we don't need creatine in the blood. We're making our own. So an individual getting adequate sleep, no chronic disease, no metabolic diseases, no neurodegenerative diseases, is producing adequate amounts of brain creatine. It could be as little as 1 to 3 grams. Now, our brain is small from stature, but it uses 20% of our daily energy. And of course, as we all know, when you're really tired, sleep deprivation, running around chasing your children, most people that I know are really metabolically stressed, primarily from a cognition perspective. And that's where creatine seems to have the best lines of evidence. Sleep deprivation, hypoxia, jet lag. I was up at 3 o'clock this morning and flew down. So I'll be taking a really high dose today to hopefully offset the chance of inflammation or cognitive decline. So when we look at the totality of emerging evidence, some studies don't see any effect, but the ones that do is in a population where they're either mentally fatigued, sleep deprivation, or during times of aging, and that's where memory comes into play.
So this really hit me because after I'm stressed or as you get older and maybe you get worse sleep or sleep deprived, I used to work night shift and I would have horrible sleep. I could never sleep on night shift. The next day I would be sleeping from 8 in the morning and I'd get up at 10. I just could not sleep, even with blackout curtains. So I wish I knew about this a long time ago.
And the common denominator seems to be the more that the brain is stressed, the more creatine seems to come to the rescue. Same analogy from a muscle and bone perspective.
So supplementing with how much creatine can improve cognition in, let's say, older adults?
Yeah, as little as about 5 grams has been shown to have some potential, but this is interesting. I just 20 minutes ago said that the loading phase wasn't needed for muscle. The best studies for the brain look at 20 grams a day for at least a week. So now you're in a conundrum. I'm looking at muscle, bone, and brain. So the thought is to get an improvement in brain creatine stores, you need longer duration of supplementation or higher dosages. So the best lines of evidence using MRS have shown that higher 20 grams a day seem to be the most viable. There's been a single study looking at about 4 grams a day, but it took 3 months to accumulate in the brain. Unlike our muscle, which acts as like a vacuum, it sucks in all the creatine from our blood. Our brain says, no, I'm only going to take what's in our blood, i.e. supplementation, when need be. So that's why sleep deprivation seems to have the best lines of evidence, or mental fatiguing challenges. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're someone like myself who's been supplementing with 5 grams a day for a year.
Okay.
That's enough time for it to eventually accumulate into the brain, presumably?
Yeah, like that low dose, remember, you need about 2 to 3 grams. Now, I'm not sure about your diet, but you're going to need that just to maintain your muscle. And then comes down to your genetics. What's more in jeopardy? Is it your bones or brain? So again, the 5% that's remaining throughout the body is in your testes, heart, bone, and brain. So for me, as a biological male, it's going to different areas compared to you as a biological female. But my hope is, wait a minute, let's go a bit higher so we're sort of checking off all the boxes. My guess is 5 grams, you'd have a small increase in brain creatine content. But if you have a really non-stressful life, the brain says, no, go to the bone or we'll excrete it down the toilet. But if you're metabolically stressed, it's begging for more.
Okay, so you just mentioned the best studies showing any improvement in, and when we're talking about improvement, we're talking about cognition, we're talking about like
memory. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You said 20 grams, right? Which is definitely what I don't want, the swelling part of that, which happens around 20 grams.
Yes.
So have there been studies looking at 10 grams? Is that like a sweet spot?
The seminal study was out of Germany, and they did 2 versus 4 versus 10. And this is where I personally take at least 10. And they use MRS studies, and they showed that about 10 doubled the percent increase in brain creatine content, but they also measured it in the gray matter, the white matter, and I believe the thalamus, and it all improved by about 10%. Now, it was a small sample size because to run an MRS is super expensive. So statistically, it wasn't there, but the percent improvements were a lot higher. And when you look at all the other data, 10 grams seems to be a very viable dose to not only check off the box, definitely for muscle. We're now checking off the box for brain, and now bone, and then we're also checking off the box for brain as well. So I personally take about 10 grams a day on average, but during times of metabolic stress, sleep deprivation, or jet lag, I'll increase it to 20. So today I will take 20 grams because I flew down from Canada. I'll take 20 grams again tomorrow, but when I get back home, I'll decrease it back down to 10. If any is being excreted down the toilet, I'm totally fine with that. Creatine is very cost effective, but I want to make sure I'm maximizing all my abilities and the immune system. In the last few years, I'm not getting flu-like symptoms. Hopefully that's from exercise or diet, but who knows, maybe creatine is helping because there is some anti-inflammatory effects. Yeah.
So for me, this is super interesting. I'm definitely checking this out. I'm going to start increasing my dose for sure.
You went to another area that I definitely want to talk about, but like before that, so 20 grams, then you're saying acutely when you're in the sleep deprived state, jet lag, let's say fill in the blank type of, extreme stress.
Right.
Is that immediate? So let's say like you're like up late, you're up late one night and you have something to do the next morning or the next day, you have to be like on your game. If you take that 20 grams either at night, would you take it at night, like before you go to sleep, or in the morning, or does it matter? And will it have an effect immediately?
Yeah, and I love learning. And this is just, so 20 grams might be too low. It's surprisingly to your viewers. So another study came out of Germany. They did this very elegant design. It was a crossover, and they gave 0.35 grams per kilogram. So even if you're only 70 kilograms, that's 25 grams in a bolus dose. And they measured it for 21 hours of sleep deprivation, and it really improved memory, cognition, and it increased brain creatine content. So that high a dose, not only does it get into your plasma or blood really quickly, probably in about 3 hours it's peaking. When your brain is stressed, it's being taken in quite readily. So during times of metabolic stress, it seems to work. Now, the argument is, how do I know I'm going to be stressed tomorrow? How do I know I'm going to have a bad night's sleep? You don't. So that's why I think taking a higher daily dose might be a safety. But the days you're like, oh, I didn't sleep at all, and I have a big presentation later, or me as a professor teaching 4 classes a term, I've really increased the amount. But I'm even taking more in hope that it's getting into my brain.
This is just a guy. Hope you guys liked the video. I'll see you guys on the next one.